Dad's silent revenge.
The morning my daughter-in-law told me I wasn't welcome at my own Christmas table, I was still holding my coffee mug. It'd been up since 5 a.m. prepping the turkey. The cranberry sauce was cooling on the counter I'd been cleaning for 29 years. And she looked at me calm as winter ice and said, "We didn't really plan this as your thing, Harold. Maybe you'd be more comfortable upstairs." That was my kitchen. My house, my name on the deed since 1995, I stood there holding that mug, the one my son Nelson made me in high school shop class, and for a moment I couldn't breathe, not because I was surprised. Deep down, I'd known this moment was coming for months. I just had wanted to see it. My name is Harold Pierce. I'm 61 years old, retired union electrician, been living in this house for almost 30 years now. Let me tell you how I got to that Christmas morning, because this story didn't start with Gloria's little announcement. It started 8 months earlier when my son called me from his apartment parking lot. Nelson's 32, got my late wife's brown eyes and her stubborn streak. He's an HVAC technician, good with his hands like his old man. Been married to Gloria for 3 years now. She's 31, works part-time selling real estate. Pretty girl, talks smooth, always dressed like she's going somewhere important. Margaret, my wife, passed 3 years ago, breast cancer. We fought it for 18 months, but it got her anyway. I was 58 when she died. After the funeral, people kept asking if I was going to sell the house, move somewhere smaller. Hell no, this place has everything I worked for. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, garage with my workshop, backyard with the shed I built myself. Every room has memories painted into the walls. Margaret and I bought this place in 1995 when I was 32, she was 30. Nelson was 8 then, just a kid who loved helping me fix things around the house. We scraped together the down payment from my overtime at the electrical plant and her part-time job at the school district. Took us 20 years to pay it off, but we did it. Every payment on time, every repair with our own hands. The workshop in the garage was Margaret's idea. "You need a space, that's just yours," she said. So I built workbenches, organized my tools on pegboards, put up good lighting. My father's old toolbox sits in the corner, the red Craftsman he carried for 40 years before his back gave out. That workshop became my sanctuary. After work weekends, anytime I needed to think or just work with my hands. When Margaret got sick, that workshop kept me sane. While she was doing chemo, I'd go out there and build things. Birdhouses for the backyard, shelves for her books, a jewelry box for her birthday. The smell of wood shavings and WD-40, the weight of tools in my hands, it was the only place the fear couldn't reach me. After she died, I'd spend hours out there, not always working on anything specific, just being in the space we'd created together. Sometimes I'd write her letters, tell her about my day, about Nelson, about how quiet the house felt without her laugh echoing through it. So when Nelson called that Tuesday in March saying they needed help, money was tight, his company had some layoffs, I said yes before he finished talking. "Just for a few months, Dad," he said, "till we get back on our feet. We'll help with groceries, utilities, whatever you need." I believed him. His my boy. Of course I believed him. They moved in on a Saturday with a rental van, 2 cats, and more boxes than I expected. It cleaned out the big guest bedroom, the one with the east-facing window and attached bathroom. Washed the curtains, put fresh flowers on the dresser Margaret had refinished herself. Wanted them to feel welcome because that's what family does. Gloria seemed fine at first, polite, helpful around the house. She'd make coffee in the mornings, ask if I needed anything from the store. Even complimented my workshop when Nelson showed her around. "So organized," she said. "You must really know what you're doing." The first couple weeks were good, quiet, but good. Nelson and I would sit at the kitchen table in the mornings before Gloria woke up, drinking coffee and talking about work, about life. Reminded me of when he was a teenager and we'd have those slow weekend mornings before the day got loud. Gloria would come down around 9:30 and we'd all have breakfast together. She'd work at the dining room table on her laptop, making calls to clients, scheduling house showings. It seemed manageable, I thought. This is going to work out fine. Then April came and things started changing. Small things at first, so small I almost didn't notice. I came downstairs one morning and the throw pillows on my couch were different. Margaret had picked those pillows herself at a craft fair in Columbus, arranged them just the way she liked, green and burgundy with little tassels on the corners. Now they were stacked differently. 2 of them moved to the chair by the window. I stood there for a minute, looking at them, moved them back to where they belonged. Didn't say anything to anyone. Told myself it was nothing. Maybe Gloria had been cleaning and put them back wrong. Week later, I noticed something else. The picture in the hallway was gone. Small watercolor of a winter scene that my buddy Betty had painted for Margaret after the diagnosis. Simple thing, snow-covered barn, bare trees, but Margaret loved it. Said it reminded her of her grandmother's farm. Found it leaning against the wall in the coat closet, replaced by some abstract print I'd never seen. Gray and pink swirls that look like something from a hotel lobby. The kind of art that doesn't mean anything to anybody. I went upstairs and knocked on their bedroom door. Nelson answered, looking tired. Kid worked long days crawling around attics and basements, installing ductwork. Always came home exhausted. The painting in the hall, I said. Betty made that for your mother when she was sick. It stays up. He looked uncomfortable, glanced back toward the bedroom where I could hear Gloria moving around. Gloria thought it made the hallway feel dark. She got that new print at some shop downtown. She's trying to make the space feel more. More what? More like home. Home. As if it wasn't already my home. As if 30 years of Margaret and me building this place together didn't count for anything. Nelson, I said, keeping my voice level. I appreciate that she wants to feel comfortable here. But this is my house, and that painting means something to me. Put it back, he nodded, said he would. The new print stayed up for another week before Betty's watercolor quietly reappeared. But I could tell from the way Gloria looked at it when she walked past that this wasn't over. By May, Gloria had reorganized my kitchen cabinets. Came down one morning to make coffee and couldn't find my favorite mug, that shop class one Nelson made me when he was 16. Kid was so proud of that thing, brought it home wrapped in newspaper like it was made of gold. Found it shoved in the back of a high shelf behind a set of matching white mugs Gloria had bought. Plain white things that looked like they came from a restaurant supply store. It's more functional this way, she told me when I asked about it. The matching set looks cleaner and more organized. That old one was taking up a lot of space. I looked at her for a moment, really looked at her. She was standing there in my kitchen, in the house Margaret and I had built together, telling me my son's handmade gift was taking up too much space. My son made me that mug when he was 16, I said. She smiled in that way people smile when they think you're being unreasonable, but don't want to say so out loud. Of course, Harold. Whatever you prefer, but her tone said something different. Her tone said she was humoring an old man who couldn't let go of junk. I moved the mug back to the front of the cabinet. It stayed there exactly 2 days before it migrated to the back shelf again. This time, I didn't say anything, but I started paying attention, really paying attention. By June, she needed my workshop. Said her real estate business was growing, needed a proper office space where she could meet with clients. My workshop where I kept my tools, my workbench Margaret had given me for Christmas 1998, my father's red Craftsman toolbox in the corner. I was thinking that space would be perfect, she said. Good lighting, separate entrance through the garage. Very professional. I said no. First time I'd said it directly, without softening it with explanations or apologies. I completely understand, she said, still with that smile. No problem at all. 3 days later, I came home from the hardware store to find her laptop and printer set up on my workbench. My tools were shoved into plastic bins on the floor. Dad's toolbox pushed into the corner behind a stack of real estate flyers to make room for some fancy ergonomic office chair. She was on a phone call when I walked in, talking to a client about mortgage rates, held up one finger when she saw me, like I was interrupting her in my own workshop. I stood there for a minute, listening to her talk about interest rates and closing costs in the space where Id built Nelson's toy chest, where I'd made Margaret's jewelry box, where Id spent countless hours after her diagnosis just trying to keep my hands busy so my mind wouldn't break. When she hung up, I said, this needs to move. Oh, Harold, so sorry. I should have asked first. Nelson said it would be okay for just today. I had a client meeting that got moved up, and I needed somewhere professional looking for the video call, just for today, but the equipment stayed. Every day, another excuse. Important client. Last minute showing. Big deal closing. I went to Nelson. Found him in the kitchen after dinner. Reading something on his phone. Your wife's taken over my workshop, I said. He looked uncomfortable. She's under pressure with the business, Dad. It's just temporary. That's my workshop, son. Where I keep my tools, where your grandfather's toolbox is, it's not an office. I know Il talked to her. He talked to her. She apologized again, said she understood completely, promised it wouldn't happen again. Her computer stayed on my workbench for 6 more weeks. That's when I started to understand what was really happening here. It wasn't about needing space or making improvements or feeling comfortable. It was about territory, about who had authority in this house. And Gloria was testing how much she could take before I pushed back. Every boundary she crossed that I didn't defend became the new normal. Every temporary arrangement that I tolerated became permanent. She was rewriting the rules of my own house, one small change at a time. Here's the thing, nobody tells you about this kind of situation. It doesn't happen all at once. If someone moved into your house on day 1 and started rearranging everything, throwing out your stuff, claiming your spaces, you'd throw them out immediately. But it happens slow, like water wearing down stone. Each thing by itself seems too small to fight over, too petty, too much trouble for what it's worth. Before you know it, you're standing in your own kitchen feeling like a guest in somebody else's house. By August, 5 months into what was supposed to be a few months' arrangement, two things were clear. First, they had no plan to leave. Nelson had steady work again, overtime even, but there was no talk of apartment hunting, no timeline, no mention of our original agreement. Second, Gloria was treating the house like she owned it. She bought new kitchen towels without asking me, threw out the old ones Margaret had embroidered with little strawberries, replaced the soap dispensers in the bathroom with some fancy set that looked like it belonged in a hotel, started having conversations with my neighbor Pete about trimming the hedge between our yards, talking like she was the homeowner making decisions about property maintenance. And Nelson said nothing. When he did say something, it was always in the tone of a man trying to keep the peace, never a man who understood what was actually happening. That's when I started paying real attention, not just noticing things, but documenting them. I bought a small digital recorder at Radio Shack. Nothing fancy, just something to keep track of conversations. Started taking pictures too. My stuff moved around. Her stuff appearing in places it didn't belong. Kept receipts when she bought things for the house without asking me first. Wasn't planning anything dramatic, just wanted proof of what was going on in case things got complicated later. My buddy Dave from the union had gone through a messy divorce a few years back, and he always said the same thing: document everything. People's memories get fuzzy when lawyers get involved. September came and Gloria told me she was using my address for her real estate license renewal. Not asked, told. Said it was easier for paperwork since she was living here anyway, and it would help with her business having a residential address instead of a P.O. box. Makes me look more established, she explained. Clients trust agents who have stable home addresses. Something about that didn't sit right. I called Dave and asked him what he thought. Harold, he said, she's establishing residency. Using your place for business, you need to be careful here. Document everything, every conversation, every change she makes, every time she acts like your house is hers. So I did. Every time she bought something for our house. Every time she made decisions about decorating or maintenance. Every time she talked to neighbors or service people like she lived there permanently. Had a whole folder by November. October brought a new level of bold. Gloria started meeting clients at the house. Real estate showings for other properties, but using my dining room table for the paperwork, my living room for the consultations. She had set up her laptop and spread out contracts and property listings like she was running an office. It's so much more professional than meeting at Starbucks, she told Nelson when he asked about it. Clients respond better to a proper home environment. My home environment that Margaret and I had created together. I started keeping track of how often she did this, how many clients came through, whether she was charging them any kind of consultation fee. Found out later she was advertising in-home consultations on her business website, like having a proper office was part of her service package. Then came November, and Gloria announced she was throwing a Christmas party, not asked, announced. I thought it would be nice to have some people over, she said over breakfast. My sister Barbara, her husband Carl, a couple clients from work. Nothing too big. December 23rd. Sounds fine, I said, stirring my coffee. I'll need to know how many people so I can plan the food. She tilted her head like G said, something odd. Oh, I was going to handle all that. You don't need to worry about anything. Just relax and enjoy yourself. It's my house, Gloria. I'll be involved in any party here. Of course, she said with that smile again. I just meant I wanted to take the pressure off you. Let you be a guest in your own home for once, a guest in my own home. She actually said that. The week before the party, I noticed her buying things, expensive things. New tablecloth, fancy napkins, some kind of centerpiece arrangement that cost more than I used to spend on groceries for a week. All charged to a credit card, all for the party. December 22nd, I came downstairs to find my dining room completely rearranged. My good dining chairs, solid oak, bought them piece by piece over 20 years because we couldn't afford a whole set at once, were mixed with folding chairs from somewhere. The table was moved to the center of the room. My sideboard, where Margaret's china lived, was pushed against the far wall to make space. On the sideboard sat a line of white pillar candles in some modern arrangement that looked like it came from a catalog. My centerpiece, the wooden reindeer Margaret had carved our first Christmas after we bought the house, surrounded by pine branches I cut fresh from the backyard every year, was sitting on newspaper by the back door like trash waiting for pickup. I stood in my dining room doorway for a long moment looking at what she'd done. Then I picked up my reindeer, placed them back in the center of my table where they belonged, moved the white candles to the sideboard, and went to make coffee. Gloria came downstairs at 9:30. Walked into the dining room, walked back out, stood in the kitchen doorway with her arms crossed. "I had that arranged a specific way," she said. "I know I said not looking up from my coffee and I changed it back. My reindeer go on my table at Christmas. They always have." Her lips pressed together in a thin line. "Harold, I spent a lot of time on that arrangement. It looked really elegant. I'm sure it did. But this is my house and those are my decorations." She went back upstairs without another word. I could hear her talking to Nelson, voice getting higher. Couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear enough. Nelson found me in the kitchen an hour later. Looked tired in that particular way, had been looking for months. The fatigue of a man standing between two people he loves, not knowing how to stop doing it. "Dad," he said. "About the centerpiece. Nelson," I said, setting down my mug. "I'm not having this conversation. Tomorrow's my Christmas party too in my house. My centerpiece stays." He nodded. Didn't push back. I took that as something, even if it wasn't enough. The guests arrived December 23rd at 6 p.m. Barbara and Carl seemed like decent people. Two women I didn't know, clients of Gloria's from her real estate business. Young, well-dressed, perfectly friendly in that professional way. I'd been cooking since 4:30 a.m. Turkey, 2 kinds of pie, cranberry sauce from scratch the way Margaret taught me. Set the table with the good plates, the blue and white ones Wed gotten as a wedding gift and saved for special occasions. Polished the silverware, put out cloth napkins Margaret had embroidered herself. I was still wearing my apron when Gloria came into the kitchen just before people arrived. She looked me over the apron with World's Best Dad printed on it that Nelson had given me years ago, the oven mitts, the reading glasses pushed up on my forehead, and something crossed her face that she didn't quite manage to hide. "Harold," she said, voice calm and even like she was making a reasonable suggestion. "We didn't really plan this as your thing. I thought you'd probably want to relax tonight. Maybe have a quiet evening upstairs, watch some TV. I can handle everything down here." There it was. In the house I'd owned for 29 years, at the table I'd set for every Christmas since Margaret died. After cooking for 4.5 hours, she told me I might be more comfortable upstairs. I want to tell you what I felt in that moment. Not the anger you might expect, that hot, immediate surge that makes you slam doors and raise your voice. Something colder, something very clear, like a door closing. And on the other side of that door was every excuse I'd made. Every time I'd kept quiet, every moment I'd said I'd prefer when I should have said, "This is not happening." I took off my apron, folded it neat on the counter, but I didn't go upstairs. I walked into the dining room where the guests were settling in, and I pulled out the chair at the head of the table. My chair. The one I'd sat in for every Christmas dinner for 29 years. The one Margaret used to tease me about, calling it my throne, and I sat down. Gloria appeared in the doorway. Her expression was controlled, but I could see the tension in her jaw. "Barbara," I said, turning to Gloria's sister. "Good to see you again. How's that basement renovation coming along? Nelson mentioned you were redoing the whole thing." Barbara's face relaxed immediately. "Finally finished, Harold. What a project. You wouldn't believe how long drywall takes when you're doing it yourself." And the conversation moved the way conversations do when someone redirects them with purpose. Carl started talking about their contractor troubles. One of Gloria's clients asked about the cranberry sauce because it smelled incredible. I answered every question, laughed at every appropriate moment, and played the host in my own house. Dinner was served. My turkey, my cranberry sauce, my pies. And I sat at the head of my table. After the guests left, after the dishes were done, I did them because it was my kitchen, and washing up after a good meal is one of the more peaceful things a man my age can do. I sat in the living room. Nelson came and sat across from me. Gloria stayed in the dining room, probably rearranging something. "Dad," Nelson said, stopped, started again. "I didn't know she said that to you." "I know. I'm sorry, Nelson," I said. "I need you to hear something, really hear it, not just manage it. This is my home. I've been patient and generous because I love you both, but I can't keep doing that if the space I'm making is being filled with disrespect." He was quiet for a long time. Outside, a car drove past with Christmas music playing. "I know we've overstayed," he finally said. "I think I've been avoiding dealing with it because he stopped. I don't know, it felt easier to stay here. Easier than what? Than figuring out what Gloria and I actually need to figure out." I looked at my son and understood something I hadn't let myself see before. The trouble between Nelson and Gloria wasn't just about my house. Something in their marriage was unresolved, and staying here had given them a way to avoid dealing with it. My space, my patience, my constant presence as something to navigate around, it had all functioned as a distraction from whatever they needed to work out between themselves. That wasn't something I could fix, and it wasn't something I should have to contain. "I love you," I told him, "always will, but I need you both to find your own place by February 1st. that gives you 5 weeks. I'll help however I can, look at listings with you, help with deposits if money's still tight. But February 1st is the date. He nodded, didn't argue. I think part of him was relieved. They moved out January 29th, 2 days ahead of schedule. Found a nice 2-bedroom apartment about 15 minutes away, complex with a pool and fitness center. When they drove off with the rental truck for the second time, I stood on my front porch and watched until they turned the corner. Then I went inside and put Betty's watercolor back in the hallway where it belonged. Moved my shop class mug to the front of the cabinet. Opened the door to my workshop and stood there for a moment, breathing in the smell of metal and wood and honest work. Got Dad's red toolbox back where it belonged. Put my tools back on the pegboard in proper order. Sat down at my workbench and started planning a project I'd been thinking about: new shelving for the garage, something to organize my fishing gear properly. Nelson calls twice a week now. We talk longer than we used to, and better. Without the strange tension that had built up between us, there's more room for real conversation. He told me last week that he and Gloria started seeing a marriage counselor, which takes courage. I didn't press for details. That's their life to work out. Gloria texted me in February. Short message saying she knew things had been difficult and she was sorry for her part in it. I texted back and thanked her. Meant it. I hope she figures out what she needs, just can't be in my house. If there's something I want to leave you with, whoever you are, whatever version of this you might be living, it's this: the moment you let someone redefine your boundaries without speaking up isn't when they take something from you. That moment comes earlier, and it's always smaller than you expect. A picture moved, a conversation redirected, a space claimed without asking. If you let those small moments pass in silence because you love someone or want to keep peace, or because each thing seems too minor to fight over, that silence becomes the loudest thing in the room. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to say this is my home and this is not negotiable. You can say it with kindness and respect, but you have to say it clearly. The people who truly love you will respect a clear boundary. The ones who want are showing you something important about who they really are. Now, when I see other guys going through something similar, I tell them, don't wait like I did. Your house, your rules. Some battles are worth fighting, especially when they're about protecting what you've spent your whole life building. Your home isn't just an address or a place to sleep. It's the shape of your life built by your sweat and sacrifice. Guard it like you'd guard your dignity, because that's exactly what it is. I learned that respect isn't something you can ask for politely or hope someone will give you out of kindness. It's something you have to demand with your actions, even from the people you love most.